When you're burned out and stressed out, you're not empathetic, you have little patience, you're angry, reactive, and that's how many times it can manifest. Physicians,
Mm.
whoever's going through burnout, is just always reactive, angry, yelling.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. V, triple board certified MD and performance and longevity expert. And guess what? The second edition of my book has been out for nearly a week. I hope you guys have got the second edition because there was so much additional information in the second edition that makes it so powerful. We talk about the difference between the people that were able to thrive under the pressure, the change, and the challenges during the COVID-19 pandemic and those that just barely survived. What was that one link and how do you access that? We also talk about how when we reach our thrive state, when we become this energetic part of ourselves that is lit up, it not only affects us, it affects our teams, our families, and communities. We talk about basically this energetic ripple that we cause when we get into the thrive state. And lastly, we talk about how to start making choices from your true self, from your heart. You know, we all have been through New Year's resolutions where we have all these goals that we want to accomplish, but there's something that keeps stopping us. What is that thing? I unravel the thing that stops us in a very simple process we can actually use to not have it stop us again. So it's lasting impact that we want to create. And the second edition talks about that. So it's expanded content. There is a soft cover and a hardcover of the second edition. And I can't wait for you to pick up a copy. Go to thrivestatebook.com to get that second edition. And if you are new to the podcast, welcome in this podcast. The Thrive State Podcast is really how we become the best versions of ourselves. How do we return to the part of us that's connected to the stars, the divine part of us, this universal intelligence and power that's within us? That is the thrive state. This is the energetic that gives us optimal health, longevity, and peak performance. So if you've just joined it, please subscribe, please engage with our community and the content that will help the show grow. And if you're a returning member of the Thrive State Podcast and really have gotten value, please help the show grow by leaving us a 5-star review wherever you're listening to your podcast. That will definitely help us generate buzz and to get our message out to more and more people. Now, on today's podcast, I have a very special guest. In fact, she actually did her residency where I had my first attendingship, actually at Kaiser Permanente, Los Angeles Medical Center. She's actually a urologist. And today we talk about a very special topic of burnout. We talk specifically about why physicians are burnt out, but you know, this goes beyond just doctors. It goes to people who are self-employed, people who are working for others. And deep down inside, why I think people burn out is the following. I believe that each one of us has this innate intelligence, the soul that knows that it is love and that it is safe. But over time, as children, we learn from the outside world that it might not be safe for us to be authentic, that we need to be different from ourselves, and that we learn to basically put on a mask and do things that are outside of our own intuition. And the more and more we do this, the more and more we part from this authentic nature of ourselves and become other people and continue to live that life, that ultimately leads to burnout. And burnout is a very common problem. It affects people of every race, every gender, every age, and across multiple different professions. We tap into a little bit about how burnout affects the physician community, how it affects other communities, and what we could start doing to start recognizing that we are burnt out and how we could start making changes to bring more awareness, more care to us. So my guest today, again, is Dr. Diana Londoño. She's actually a urologist. So she's actually a minority woman in what is previously a men-dominated field. She's also a physician. And so she has gone through the ringer of burnout. You'll hear her story about the symptoms that she was feeling. And I hope the story resonates with some of you out there and would give you the tools or the next steps to actually follow if you actually experience symptoms of burnout yourself. So ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy this conversation with Dr. Diana Londoño. Dr. Diana Londoño, welcome to the Thrive State Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so fun and so exciting to be here. And it's just really a treat to be able to spend time with you and speak to you. I'm really just excited to be here.
I hope you're excited to also play the 5 to Thrive, which is a game show style 5 rapid questions coming at you, just so that we get to know a little bit more about you. Before we dive into this really, really important topic about burnout afterwards. So before we get into the burnout, are you ready to play the 5 to Thrive?
I am ready. Let's see how this goes.
Okay, question number 1 is, as a child, what was your favorite color?
Blue.
Blue, you're wearing radiant pink today, but that's awesome. Question number 2.
Blue in the back. There's a lot of blue and turquoise.
That's true. There is a lot of blue in the back. For people who are listening on the podcast, she's got a blue poster, a lot of blue scrubs in the background as well. Question number 2 for you is, if I were to hand you a microphone and force you to sing in front of 10,000 people a karaoke song, what song would you choose?
Oh, this is tough because, karaoke or not is awful, but I'm digging this song that is called I Am a Woman. I don't know if you heard it. It's really powerful. And if you listen to the lyrics, it's just really empowering to listen to the lyrics, especially with, Women's Day. That was just, International Women's Day. So it's an empowering song talking about, I've got it going on, balancing the masculine, the feminine, and a woman and energy. So it's really, if you haven't heard it, check it out. It's a great song.
All right.
So I'll bust out my singing songs for that.
Okay, sounds good. I Am Woman. Question number 3 is, what has been one of the most transformational books that you've read?
Ooh, that's a tough one because there are so many. Molecules of Water. I mean, it's not the most transformational, but it's just so powerful because it talks about how it's this photographer who took pictures of molecules of water while they froze after they were exposed to different music or things that they wrote, whether it was positive things like love or anger, or angry music or classical music. And they took these photographs of water freezing, and the way that they froze when they were exposed to this, it's just so powerful to see a beautiful, perfect icicle versus like a distortion of this ice. And it just goes a little bit deeper into thinking that we're 2/3 water as human beings. We're made up of water, and how things can really affect us, that we listen to, that we take on, and kind of like, are we thriving with it or not, with negativity or positivity? So it's just an interesting book. It's powerful. It just makes you think, and it goes a little bit deeper than just beautiful pictures. So I think it's fun, but there's so many. I mean, there's so many. A great reminder that we are all energy, and that we energetically affect each other. So beautiful. Question number 4 to you is, if you were trapped in an elevator knowing you would get out in 24 hours, what is one thing that you would bring along outside or request from the outside for you to spend time with? Oh, reading. I would just, bring me some books. I'll read. It'll be quiet time and I'll read. That's what I would do. Okay. And last question for you, for all the marbles, is, how does Dr. Diana Londoño want to be remembered? Great question. Well, I think for me, just somebody that hopefully inspired others, that gave others hope, that was kind and loving to whoever I interacted with, that they remember me as somebody that really cared for, whether it was my kids, my patients, people, friendships that I interacted with. So I hope that's what they remember. Just really leaving them feel special. Well, thank you. We're going to be talking about a very important topic, which is that of burnout, specifically physician burnout. But I think, whether the people who are listening are an entrepreneur, a high performer, an actress, whatever it is,
probably, suffer burnout as well, but we know that burnout is certainly very prevalent in the physician community, with this career being one of the top careers for suicides altogether. So it's definitely front and center. So can you briefly talk a little bit about what exactly is burnout? We hear the word tossed around. People know, okay, well, maybe it's tired, whatever it is. How would you define what burnout is?
Yeah, burnout really is, and it has been defined as chronic unmanaged stress at the workplace, leading to burnout. And then burnout will manifest in many ways, but the ways that it does manifest is apathy, fatigue, you're tired, you depersonalize, which means that for a patient, instead of being, this is Mrs. Jones has this and this and this, it's just a diagnosis or a number, and you really don't relate on a personal level to that patient. So that's what depersonalization is. And it also is where you are, you have chronic stress basically, and you are feeling, again, this apathy, tired, depersonalization, and also spiraling to anxiety, depression, suicidal ideations, and suicide that you complete, which again, you mentioned earlier, it's so prevalent, so high in our profession as physicians, and more than 400 per year, which is likely an underestimate, complete suicide every single year. And also, of the people that were surveyed in all the recent surveys, we surveyed about 13,000 physicians. Of those, 1% of those were attempting suicide. So they didn't complete, but they were attempting. That's a huge number of people suffering to such degree that they're attempting to end their life. So, this is, so dramatic, because we are taking care of other people while we were going through all these emotions. And when you're in chronic stress, you are not able to really, make decisions. You make errors. People don't want to talk about it because, nobody wants to admit that you made an error on a prescription and a diagnosis, on something that you missed because you're in chronic stress. But this is really important because we take care of so many patients and we make decisions all the time, so many times per day. We're deciding from minute things to large things, and it really is going to affect, what happens to you if the wrong things happen to you, and also the care that you get, because when you're burned out and stressed out, you're not empathetic, you have little patience, you're angry, reactive, and that's how many times it can manifest. Physicians, whoever's going through burnout, is just always reactive, angry, yelling, because you're basically on that fight or flight. You're fighting with anybody or everyone, instead of being in a peaceful state, a calm state, where you're able to then again process all this information. So that's why it really matters, because we have people's lives at hand. But of course, society is really dealing with chronic stress as well. It's, everybody is, but we just think it's part of life.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, and would love to summarize what you basically said. I mean, I was a burnt out physician about 7 years ago, overweight, diabetic, had high blood pressure on prescription medication. So for me, that was physical. And so what I'm hearing from
Absolutely.
you is burnout is really chronic stress that can manifest itself physically, such as it did me, uh, emotionally,
Mhm.
mentally,
Yes.
as well as spiritually as well.
Absolutely.
So lots of different symptoms and manifestations that could have in each different person.
Yeah, and I think that's so important because, I even went through it twice and it manifested very differently. And the first time was more of the mental and the brain fog and all these things. But the second time was absolutely complete. Mentally too, I was in a negative state. Everything was negative. But physically, my body was bathed in stress, was affecting everything. Like, I was not sleeping well, grinding my teeth. I destroyed
Mm,
my molars. I had an
mm,
abscess. I developed asthma at, 42 years old, asthma that was confirmed on, like, pulmonary function test or breathing test. I had debilitating chest pain, even though I was like previously a cross country runner. I couldn't even walk across the room because I had really severe, pain in my chest. I
mm,
developed rheumatoid not rheumatoid arthritis, but I had joint pain. So something that's
Mm,
checked is called rheumatoid factor that we see in autoimmune diseases. That was elevated at the height of all this chronic stress really manifesting in your body. And, I had reflux, I was on protonics, medicines for reflux, and it's all because of stress.
mm,
And, as a physician, I really couldn't put two and two together that that's what it is. I'm thinking, oh, this is COVID or whatever it is. It wasn't, it was stress. And interestingly, even my physician, I mean, he could have said, like, I think this is stress, but it was just like, oh, well, start your protonics and start your inhaler and go to the specialist. And here, like in different body parts, I think an easy question could have been like, well, what else is going on? Or,
mm.
is there something at home or, what's happening to kind of put it together that this is all chronic stress, again, burnout. So it's so important that even as physicians, it's not like we have this awareness and we can
Yeah.
realize that, but it's
Well,
really
we were
something
not taught that in medical
never.
school, really, right? I mean, I would probably say that so much of the culture in going through traditional medical training is not putting yourself first, putting the needs of your patient, the studies, or whatever it might be as number one. And, it's a badge of honor to take on more and more stress because if you can't cut it, you can't cut it. And we carry that from our medical school training to our residency training. We come out and we never really get to stop and really care for ourselves, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, it's some type of badge of honor, and it really isn't. When you're so depleted, I mean, that's why we're in burnout, because we never take that time to take care of ourselves or stop that stress cycle and all the stresses that we get to really spend time to be like, okay, this is a time for me to stop that stress cycle. However, it can be for you. For some people, maybe again, doing things that you enjoy outside of medicine or even within medicine, but that brings you a lot of joy. So sometimes it could be reading, it could be writing, it could be dancing, it could be exercising. I mean, all these things we can do to stop the stress and really, reverse it. And we just don't put that time for us. And then it has to be done every single day because we're bombarded with all these stressors, all these things we have to do, what people say, what people demand of us, insurance, paperwork, all these things all the time keep coming, and we have to find that time to stop it. So yeah, we have to change the culture of medicine that we're last always, and we're sort of like doormats. It really, we're not. And if we don't change it, the numbers are going to keep climbing. For the past 2 years, it's been going up 5% per year of levels of burnout, where, now we're at 53%, but for women it's much higher. We're at 63%
Mm,
of all women physicians. And again,
mm,
5% every single year. I mean, what's the end point? And some specialists, especially the frontline emergency physicians in the last year, 2022, 65%. And the other ones are, internal medicine and pediatrics. These is all frontline. So these are like the gatekeepers that when you go to the ER, you want that person alert and motivated and empathetic and really not making mistakes and missing whatever you're coming in for. So that's very
mm.
scary to think about. This is what's happening to us because you don't care. I mean, 13% are thinking how are they going to end their life that day, and some are going to be taking pills or doing something to attempt it. So they're not going to be, in a way, caring so much of what's happening with you, in the operating room, in the ER, in the clinic. So
Yeah.
it's really a big impact.
Now, have you found for physicians in general any particular category of stress that seems to come up most often, or it's kind of all over the place? I mean, I'm trying to think of like, different areas of my life. Was any area of life felt not stressful at the time I was in burnout? And I can't say that there was. I don't think I was sleeping very well. I brought stress to my sleep, stress to what I ate. My body was stressed. That didn't work out. I got stress from the other doctors. I got stress from the patients. I got stress from the electronic medical record.
Mhm.
And I was just wondering, are there certain type of category. And I was stressed at home and in my relationships as well. So do you find that there's any themes, or do you feel like, doctors in general just find stress in multiple different areas?
This episode of the Thrive State podcast is brought to you by the Thrive State Accelerator. The Thrive State Accelerator is actually a home course that I developed using the exact same techniques I work with my celebrity clients, CEOs, and executives on how to get them to the Thrive State. The Thrive State Accelerator teaches you how to master your 7 bioenergetic elements. That's sleep, nutrition, movement, stress and emotional mastery, relationships, our thoughts and mindset, as well as purpose. In this Thrive State Accelerator, you're also going to get a bonus module on optimization. That's how I talk about supplementation, peptides, all the optimization techniques I use with my clients to get them to the Thrive State. Now, for some of you who are just joining us for the first time, you guys might be wondering, what is the Thrive State? Well, the Thrive State is actually the energy, the epigenetic environment we give to ourselves, telling our DNA how to act and how to respond. And if we want optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, if we can master these 7 bioenergetic elements, our ability to have those 3 things that we just said, optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, is at its greatest. And it also prevents you from getting chronic symptoms like brain fog, being overweight, feeling sluggish, acne, pain, all these chronic symptoms, as well as preventing you from getting chronic disease. So getting to that Thrive State is really getting to that state to master being that very best version of yourself, so you could show up for you, for your family, for your business, everything that's important to you. So go ahead, check it out right now at kienvu.com/accelerator and use coupon code podcast25 for 25% off. Now back to the podcast.
This is multifactorial, and the culture, medicine, all these things, because when it's studied, it says like too many tasks, and it's true. If you have too many tasks put on you all the time, too many paperwork to fill out, too many hoops to go through, authorizations, pre-authorizations, all these extra things you're doing, you're not going home at 5, 6, 7. You're spending all this time still at work or charting and finishing paperwork, clerical stuff, but that we do as physicians, and you're doing this in the weekend and at night. So when are you going to work out? If you're leaving home at 6:30 and you live in LA, it's like an hour traffic for most people to drive.
Yeah.
So then you're getting home at 7:30. And then maybe if you have kids, you put them to bed, and then that's your whole night, and then you got to do charting more that you didn't do. So there's no time to prioritize to do that. So there's just too many tasks. The systems we have are inefficient. They're not helping anybody except we're clerks, and we're just, again, this culture that the last man standing is going to win somehow. It really is not helpful, where we can change our culture to say, hey, you know what? Let's sort of maybe divide this, or how can we make things more efficient? Why are we doing things this way? Is there better ways to do this? And really change the way we do stuff to make it a culture that is really rooted in love, and is rooted in love for the self, for the physicians, to take care of each other. But we don't practice in that culture. It's just like, oh no, keep doing more and more and more. And, nobody worries when your colleague's there till 9 o'clock, and then they have to, be the next day working full day. So it's changing the culture of how we prioritize our care for each other and for us.
Yeah, we talk about it through the lens of physicians, but I want people who are listening to this, I'm pretty sure you have different stresses in whatever you're doing. At work, you probably have different issues than physicians do, but the underlying thing is really, caring for your own needs, for your own joy, and for your own happiness. And creating a culture. You mentioned some of these things where you start talking about systemic changes that need to happen in the healthcare industry to reduce the prevalence of physician burnout. But how can doctors and healthcare organizations start to work together to affect these changes? I think people constantly feel pressured to do more with less, and they almost seem to be at odds of of well-being and productivity and resources. How do we fix this?
Yeah, I mean, if you're really looking at numbers, when people are burned out and they leave medicine, they leave a job, to replace a physician, it's about $500,000 to $1 million per physician. So imagine if you actually spend that $500,000 of one physician that left, and likely we have so many that leave an organization, to really hire somebody to really, be an effective leader to take care of the issues that are going on. And it really is about leadership. I really believe it. It's about leadership that is caring, compassionate leadership that communicates with physicians. When was the last time they truly asked, like, what do you need? Because, just to check off a box to say you have like a wellness officer, that's really not helpful. The needs of different specialists are different. So what is important for an ER physician is different than a pediatrician. And what's important for somebody else may be very different. So we have to ask the physicians, what do they need? What are their pain points? And really have communication, like really come to the, to the grounds and shadow and see the clinics and see what processes are going on that are likely not efficient, are not helpful, and we can do things better. But that doesn't happen. So if it doesn't happen, how are we going to get better? And again, it's really about money. We don't like to think about it, but if we continue to have this exodus of physicians, it actually costs a lot of money to replace them. And in this last year, 100,000 physicians left medicine, and we have 1 million physicians already in a shortage. So we're losing so many that are leaving medicine altogether. What's going to be the breaking point when we don't have enough physicians, we don't have enough nurses, we don't have enough techs, because people are leaving the healthcare industry. And now you have to wait 3 months for an MRI. I'm a patient too, so I had to do the same thing. I had to wait 3 months for an MRI for my daughter. Trying to get a primary care doctor, 4 months. It's like, what? I mean, and I'm a physician, so imagine people that are not physicians. So it's really challenging when you are the patient, the type of care that you're getting or not getting.
Yeah. I think it's really, valuing the fact that there are human beings in the process of all of these things, and to heed their need. As physicians, we were once medical students that were at the bottom of the totem pole, where our voices were never heard, or if they were heard, I just remember many of my seniors and the people above, just sort of dismissed you as being in the bottom of the totem pole. And I didn't really feel that our voices are very well heard.
Or welcome. They're just not welcome.
Absolutely. And so I learned to kind of keep it myself and try to make myself tougher at that time. And I think so many physicians basically are entrained to do so. How do we break out of that cycle and pattern moving forward?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're just in survival mode at that point. But then we have to realize, if we continue that, you get to a point of learned helplessness. And an antidote to learned helplessness is to do something, do anything, and realize we actually have a voice and we have so much power. If we get together, we start speaking up, saying like, this is not tolerable. These are my boundaries, and boundaries are so important. And, it's a skill that we have to probably learn. Maybe we didn't have it. And maybe we did, maybe we didn't, but it's so important in medicine to have boundaries. And boundaries come from a place of love, because it's about taking care of your needs so you can take care of other people. And it's sort of like saying, well, this is what I need to be able to do my job effectively. I'm asking for this because I care, and I need X, Y, and Z. And you come up with a solution to the problem or challenge you're having. And you're part of the solution. It's not just about complaining. I see a lot of complaints all the time, and a lot of sarcasm and apathy. And that's really not productive or helpful. So if we want to be part of the solution, we have to be part of it. We have to use our voice and say, not just complaints, but this is what I need to make my job, better so I can stay here and thrive and take care of people. And we have to be part of it. We can't just be a victim. People get really rattled when, we say that, oh, you're in a victim mindset, but it is. Blaming everybody, blaming these outside forces, which are part of the problem, but we're also part of the problem if we don't speak up, say anything, put boundaries, and come up with some solutions ourselves as well, because it's affecting us. So why aren't we saying, I need this, I need that? I think that's how we can start working together and realizing we need to speak to each other. We need to speak up. You can write, you can, again, podcast. You can do so many things to change the narrative and have people say, okay, me too. Maybe I want to have the courage to do so. It takes courage, but it really has to come from love. Again, love about you and your profession, your patients, everybody else. And it takes courage and it takes boundaries, but it takes doing something. Otherwise, we're just victims of this whole thing. And then we leave, and that doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, for anybody who might be going through, stress at this point, no matter what career they might be in, can you point out, potentially some good first steps for them, or some resources that they could turn to?
I think awareness, no matter what specialty or what field you're in, awareness is the key step, because sometimes it's like the cilantro in your teeth. You don't realize you're in chronic stress or burnout. You just, again, maybe angry all the time, and you're angry at work, and you're cynical, and you're apathetic, and you're negative, and you start having, again, physical manifestations. So if you start noticing, every time you wake up, you're like dreading going to work, you don't want to go to work, you feel tension in your neck, you're getting reflux, start being curious and paying attention to what's going on. And then you have to come up with a plan of thinking of, like, what do you want? No matter what field you're in, what job you're in, like, what do you really want? Not what you don't want. We all probably can spiel that out, but what do you want? So you can start making a plan of what do you have to do to get there? What is likely out of balance in your life right now? So you can balance things, because when you're out of balance, again, mental, physical, spiritual, all that, it's gonna then lead you to burnout or depression or anxiety, because everything's out of balance. You really have to have balance. And so you have to be aware what's going on, think about what you want, and then make a plan and write it down. I mean, just dream about it. No matter what field you're in, you can still continue to dream of, like, this is what I want. I'm going to write it down. And there's so much power in writing down what you want, what your goals, what your dreams are, because it'll start putting all your focus in there and start manifesting, and you'll start working towards that goal. But if you're just like, oh, I don't know, and just kind of tumbling like a weed, well, you're going to be lost and in a bad place. So we, make little steps, and you don't have to change your whole life, but like maybe little things, maybe before you go get into the car or into work, spend 5 minutes, like closing your eyes or breathing, or listen to music that you enjoy, or calling a friend or a family, somebody that brings you a lot of joy. Spend that time to do those little things that add up, and you'll feel that you're going to feel much better by adding all these little things throughout the day. Or gratitude, gratitude is huge. If you're in a state of gratitude, you're not going to be in stress. It cannot coexist. It's one or the other. So it's like oil or water. So thinking about, what am I grateful for at night, in the morning, or like, what went well today? Something must have gone well. Yeah, there's a lot of bad things, but there's many things that went well today. So think about those things and start changing that mindset, or what you're putting your focus on, into things that are going to just make you, kind of feel better. Just like those molecules of water, when they're exposed to positive things, classical music, all these beautiful things, they come up with beautiful shapes. We are the same. So what are you exposing your mind or anything to? Because you're going to either be in burnout, like I was, focusing on all the negativity, or changing the mindset to something different and not have any of these chronic illnesses.
So good. What I'm hearing is, one, key to just be aware of what's happening, and then two, coming up with a plan. And maybe part of the plan is just coming up with little tiny things that spark joy in your life. And I think if you start to shift the energy, it builds this energetic momentum to do more and more stuff. Such great information from you, Dr. Londoño. Before I ask my last question, where do people find you?
Yeah, you can go to my website, Diana Londoño MD, like medicaldoctor.com. You can learn about me there. I'm on all the social media platforms, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and it's the same Diana Londoño MD. You can, find me there. If this stuff, resonates, you like to talk about it more, connect, just, look it up there. I love this stuff. I really love talking about these things because, again, it affects all of us, not just physicians. And I see that in my patients as well. When they're coming in with all these stress, manifestation that's illness. And if you don't address the stress, you're not going to get better. And I see that as a urologist, frequent pain, overactive bladder, pelvic pain, testicle pain. This is from all that stress kind of being stuck in those organs. And that's your body's wisdom really telling you, like, hey, pay attention. What is going on? And this is your signal of your wisdom that we have in your body to then alert that something's out of balance. And we need to really pay attention to the stress and how it's manifesting.
So good, so good. I'm pretty sure you've tried so many different types of stress relief techniques and things like that in your own life, but what have you found to be your best medicine?
I think the awareness is the best, because if you don't realize what's happening, then you can't reverse it, maintain it, like in a state of wellness. You can't maintain it, and you can't reverse where you're at if you don't have that awareness. And we all have a lot of blind spots, whether you're a physician, for sure, coach, therapist, we have blind spots. And so, one important thing I also want to say for people that are in any industry, a part of the things I discuss is, get help, get support. You can't do it alone. Sometimes you need that coach, you need that therapist, a psychiatrist, to really kind of put the mirror in front of you and help you or give you skills to get you, again, from A to B, because sometimes we don't know how to do this. And just getting that professional person to give you some guidance really is going to accelerate that, being in that valley of burnout, like my colleagues calls it, out to thriving, and at that mountaintop, like he says, just getting to a better place. And it's much faster and easier with some support and help.
So good, so good. Having awareness and certainly having some people in your corner. So good. Such a great interview today. I love the work that you've been doing. Everybody who is inspired by this, please follow Dr. Londoño at Diana Londoño MD everywhere on social media. Dr. Londoño, thank you for your time, and I hope to connect again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. So grateful to be here. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Thrive State podcast. And if this podcast is bringing a lot of value to you, if you find that your life is just improving with this podcast, that your life is getting to the next level, please consider supporting it. And here's a few ways you can do so. You can do so by liking this video and commenting on this video, and also sharing this video with your friends and family. Another thing you can do is go to ratethispodcast.com/ThriveState. Go ahead and leave us a 5-star review there. It will really, really help this show grow. And this will give me more time so that I could actually give more content to you, just like you got in this episode. And if you haven't already picked up a copy of my book, Thrive State, Your Blueprint for Optimal Health, Longevity, and Peak Performance, you can pick it up now. It became a #1 new release in longevity. Go to thrivestatebook.com. And if you enjoy the book, please consider leaving us a review as well. And the last thing you can do, if you're liking everything here and you want to work more closely with me as well as my team to get you into the Thrive State, go to kienvu.com/accelerator and consider joining the home course, the Thrive State Accelerator. It's really the course that I use. It's the concepts that I use personally when I work with CEOs, celebrities, and my high-profile clients to get them to the Thrive State. Again, the Thrive State Accelerator at kienvu.com/accelerator. And because you're a listener of this podcast, I want you to save 25% by using the coupon code podcast25. I hope we continue to give value to you. And remember always, you are your best medicine.